You're listening to the N2K Space Network.
Hey everybody, Dave here. I've talked about Delete Me before, and I'm still using it because it still works. It's been a few months now, and I'm just as impressed today as I was when I signed up. Delete Me keeps finding and removing my personal information from data broker sites, and they keep me updated with detailed reports, so I know exactly what's been taken down. I'm genuinely relieved knowing my privacy isn't something I have to worry about every day. The Delete Me team handles everything. It's the set it and forget it peace of mind. And it's not just for individuals. Delete Me also offers solutions for businesses, helping companies protect their employees' personal information and reduce exposure to social engineering and phishing threats. And right now, our listeners get a special deal, 20% off your Delete Me plan. Just go to joindeleteme.com/N2K and use promo code N2K at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/N2K, code N2K.
Today is May the 19th, 2025. I'm Alice Carruth, and this is T-Minus.
T-minus 20 seconds to LOS T-Drift. Go for deploy. Roger, roll. 5.
Sophia Space has raised $3.5 million in a pre-seed funding round.
4.
Chinese commercial space company Landspace launched 6 satellites to LEO.
3.
SpaceX has acquired Akoustis Technologies for approximately $30.2 million in cash and the assumption of certain liabilities.
2.
Palantir USG to provide space command and control data platform solutions in support of the US Department of Defense and Joint Force missions.
1.
India's PSLV rocket experiences an anomaly during the 3rd stage of launch. Today is the first installment of the Space Nexus segment from our partners at the Aerospace Corporation. Parker Wisich will be speaking to JD Dyers from Agile and Amy Hubble from Aerospace about testing rocket engines before flight. Stay with us for the Nexus after today's intelligence briefing. Happy Monday, everyone. We're kicking off with news from this weekend's launch in India. The Indian Space Research Organisation released a statement on Sunday that stated that it could not complete its 101st mission, the PSLV-C61, due to a technical glitch. The Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, or PSLV, had a nominal liftoff carrying Earth Observation Satellite EOS-09 from the Satish Dhawan Space Centre. It was due to release the satellite 17 minutes into the flight, but ISRO says it experienced a glitch during the 3rd stage of the launch. ISRO Chairman V. Narayanan released the statement, quote, "The PSLV is a 4-stage vehicle and 2nd stage performance was quite normal. The 3rd stage's motor started perfectly, but during the functioning of the stage, we are seeing an observation and the mission could not be accomplished. After analysis, we shall come back." The 3rd stage of the PSLV is a solid rocket motor that provides the upper stage's high thrust after the atmospheric phase of the launch. Mr. Narayanan later told reporters that during the 3rd stage there was a fall in chamber pressure in the motor case. The mission was the 63rd flight of the PSLV and the 27th in the PSLV XL configuration. Before Sunday's launch, the PSLV has suffered only 2 failures since its first mission in 1993. We hope they figure out the issues soon and return to flight promptly. We're heading over to the US now. The US Space Force's Space Systems Command has selected Palantir USG to provide space command and control data platform solutions in support of the Department of Defense and Joint Force missions. The $217.8 million delivery order was awarded under the Space Data Software Services IDIQ and will be known as the Space C2 data platform. The platform uses data to enable military leaders to make decisions more quickly, efficiently, and with greater confidence, resulting in real-world mission impacts. It'll aim to enable the integration and management of data from various data sources. SpaceX has acquired Akoustis Technologies for approximately $30.2 million in cash and the assumption of certain liabilities. Akoustis is an integrated device manufacturer of patented bulk acoustic wave high-band RF filters for mobile and other wireless applications. Try saying that fast. The company had filed for Chapter 11 relief in December of last year. Tune Holdings, a wholly owned subsidiary of SpaceX, is the official buyer of Akoustis. They say they will continue Akoustis' operations and team infrastructure, ensuring ongoing support for customers worldwide. Going forward, Tune Holdings will deliver next-generation bulk acoustic wave high-band RF filters to customers around the world. Chinese commercial space company Landspace launched 6 satellites to space over the weekend. The ZQ-2E-Y2 rocket lifted off from the Dongfeng Commercial Space Innovation Pilot Zone near the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. It carried spacecraft mainly developed by commercial company Space-T and the Technology Research Institute. The ZQ-2E-Y2 is a newly adapted methane-powered rocket with an increased payload capacity. Beijing-based Landspace became the world's first company to launch a methane liquid oxygen rocket in July 2023. Saturday's launch marked the first time Landspace has deployed a propulsion method that involves chilling both liquid oxygen and methane below their boiling points with the intention of boosting thrust. Sophia Space has raised $3.5 million in a pre-seed funding round. The California-based company is working to produce modular, solar-powered, passively cooled, and AI-optimized compute technology for space applications. The company was founded by former NASA Space Systems engineer and retired JPL fellow Dr. Leon Akalai and incubated at Mandala Space Ventures. Sophia Space is further developing technology that came out of Caltech and NASA JPL research, addressing the rapidly growing need for in-orbit processing, AI acceleration, and edge computing across satellites, defense systems, and commercial space operations. Sophia Space says the funding will accelerate the company's development and deployment of its Tile platform, enabling low-latency, energy-efficient AI processing in space. That concludes today's Intel briefing. N2K producer Liz Stokes has the other stories that we've included in today's selected reading section of our show notes. Liz?
Thanks, Alice. Today we have 3 additional stories for you to read up on. The first is an explainer on the security and defense partnership that has been signed between the EU and UK, which includes some space cooperation. The second is on Rocket Lab's 3rd mission for IQPS. And the final link is the announcement that Starlab Space and Balance Ophthalmics are partnering to address astronaut vision loss.
And can you remind us where we can find those links, Liz?
In addition to the selected reading section of our show notes, those links can be found on our website, space.n2k.com. Just click on today's episode.
Hey T-Minus crew, if you'd like daily updates from us directly into your LinkedIn feed, be sure to follow the official N2K T-Minus page over on LinkedIn. And if you're more interested in the lighter side of what we do here, we are at T-Minus Daily on Instagram. That's where we post videos and pictures from events, excursions, and even some behind-the-scenes treats. Links are in the show notes, and we hope you'll join us there.
Worried about cyber attacks? CyberCare from Storm Guidance is a comprehensive cyber incident response and resilience service that helps you stay prepared and protected. A unique onboarding process integrates your team with industry-leading experts, so if an incident occurs, your response is optimal. Get priority access to deeply experienced responders, digital investigators, legal and crisis PR experts, ransom negotiators, trauma counselors, and much more. The best part? 100% of unused response time can be repurposed for a range of proactive resilience activities. Find out more at cyber.care/cyberwire.
Today, we have the first installment of the Space Nexus segment from our partners at the Aerospace Corporation.
And you're in the Nexus, courtesy of the T-Minus Space Daily podcast. I'm Parker Wishick at the Aerospace Corporation. Today, we're talking testbeds and proving grounds of the propulsion persuasion with J.D. Dias, Director of Test Operations for Agile Space Industries based in Durango, Colorado, and Amy Hubble, who until very recently led the Propulsion Science Department and our test facilities here at Aerospace. So let's get right to it. J.D., testing capabilities are mission critical, particularly for propulsion. If you can't fly, you die in space. Now, this isn't all Agile does, but it is a core part of your DNA. Can you talk about your testing capabilities and how you've extended that as a service beyond your own enterprise?
Yeah, it's really important. It's how our whole company started, testing for people before designing. We have 2 stands here that are pretty much high vacuum test stands for hypergulls. So we drive a vacuum with a really big nitrogen rocket that we fire the rockets in, and that simulates a high altitude environment, similar to what they would see in space. And then we can fire the rockets there. We're kind of expanding overall throughput and how many stands we have out here in Durango. We're doing test stands in Oklahoma now as well, and expanding on how long we can fire it to kind of target some of the recent failures that you've seen in space that have been pretty prominent, and then kind of being able to cycle through as much as we can in both duration and quantity.
And this isn't just expansion in a vacuum, pun intended. There's demand for these capabilities, right?
Yeah. I have a lot of people asking if they can get on our test stand. We're booked out pretty much all the time. I try to break people in as we can.
You've even had folks send people your way because their capabilities were maxed and the queue was too long.
Yeah, that's kind of what's going on now. Is a lot of DPAS programs are eating up a lot of the government facilities. So they're kind of national security assets. And so we're trying to fill the gaps for anybody, all the way top of the food chain to brand new startups. Everybody's looking for a place to test.
Excellent. So, we can't just stand up these stands overnight. Amy, you oversaw some pretty intense construction here at Aerospace, some impressive expenditure of resources. What actually happens inside these test stands, and what goes into ensuring that they're always providing access to a space-like environment?
Yeah, so I was involved with the construction of what we call EP3, which is our latest electric propulsion test stand. And there's a lot of similarities, actually, to what JD just described. For electric propulsion, you're pumping on typically noble gas, xenon, krypton, argon. So these are also very large vacuum chambers. And the key design driver is actually pumping speed, because you need to basically remove all the propellant that you're sending through the thruster in order to replicate the background of space. In our case, this involved a multi-year campaign of designing custom pumping systems along with an absolutely massive chamber. This thing is 14 feet diameter, 30 feet long, has some very impressive and complicated, I'll say, accoutrements, add-ons that are tremendously useful to all of the customers that we deal with. And again, a lot like JD said, we are working with folks from all over who want to come and use these facilities. It's unique and provides a really vital service. But it's tough and expensive and timely to set these up. So it's important that they serve a broader purpose in the enterprise, not just for aerospace, but for all of the companies and stakeholders that are involved.
So all these folks that are knocking down your door to get into your test chambers, they all have the same exact needs, right? It's carbon copy this test to this test. I'm understanding that right, JD?
I'm hoping someday in heaven that's the case. But no, every single one, Like you'll set up an entire, multi-million-dollar setup, and then the next guy will show up and they need something just a little bit different. You've got to redo the whole thing. And then there's, they want to test the next day and think that their changes are minor. It's everybody's custom every single time. It's wild.
So you're not done once you've developed these stands, then you have to customize. How much demand would you say, Amy, what percentage of the demand for testing requires that customization?
Probably 99%. There's always something. We've started developing techniques to try and standardize a bit of our testing approach, but typically when companies are looking to come to some of the, like our facility, they're at a point where they may be looking for something, I'll say, very bespoke or specific. They need that top tier pumping speed. They need a unique diagnostic. And so it usually almost always ends up being just slightly different, or sometimes really different from the testing that we've done before. And that's another value that's provided by these testbeds and proving grounds, is the ability to tailor the test campaign to the specific needs of the customer.
Do either of y'all have a favorite customization anecdote that you are allowed to share?
I have one. One of the requirements that somebody tried to flow to me was to put a super high-speed camera in the plume looking up the throat, and just being like, it's a rocket. Like I can't do that without just destroying. Like, what about a mirror? I'm like, it will die too. You can throw all kinds of things in the plume and it will die there.
So you're saying there's a business case for indestructible video that can actually live in the plume. So
I think GoPro's got a start on it, but yeah, pretty much. Like it's pretty wild.
Amy, I know that one of the chambers that we have, Mud Pie, and you have to answer how we came to call it Mud Pie, is one of your sandboxes, if you will, among our propulsion suite.
So Mud Pie is a new facility. It's actually a small facility that we put together in order to kind of be able to rapidly respond to unique test challenges. And the name Mud Pie came about. We have a kind of a theme in our lab. A lot of our chambers are named after types of pie. And this is the chamber that we intended to be our kind of dirty propellants chamber for EPs. This is where we might test multi-mode propulsion, or other things that we don't necessarily want to spew on our very expensive, very custom cryo pumping system that we've got in the big chamber. So for this chamber, we had to essentially, I'll say, pull together a custom pumping system on our own in a couple of weeks to support an upcoming test. So it was challenging, and it worked surprisingly well. So it's important, we've talked a lot about these huge bespoke chambers too, but it's also really useful, we've found, to have a lot of different options to be able to flex to the specific need of a test that we might have.
I love
The JD, yeah, and noting Agile has named its test stands after mountains in the vicinity of Durango. You'll have to tell us what the names are going to be in Oklahoma. For
Black
our
Mesa facility.
Okay, all right, perfect. So we want to differentiate for listeners who might not know between chemical propulsion or chemprop and electric propulsion or EP, Amy used earlier. Agile kind of specializes in the chemical propulsion. That's, for high thrust, short duration propulsion in space. EP, a lower thrust, longer duration burn. Am I right on that, or any nuances to add to that?
I do kind of use the metaphor that EP is your Toyota Prius and chemprop is your F-150. We're starting to see, I'll say, a little more overlap potentially between the two. Fundamentally, chemical propulsion is relying on some kind of chemical reaction to create your thrust, and electric propulsion is relying on some kind of electrostatic, electromagnetic force to create your thrust, and usually that involves forming a plasma and using that kind of as your propellant, whereas, chemprop is running on a chemical propellant like hydrazine or otherwise. There can be definitely some different challenges in designing a chemprop facility versus an electric propulsion facility. But fundamentally, they do share a lot of similarities. You're ultimately just trying to replicate your operating environment for your thruster, and you may be trying to make some of the same kind of key measurements like thrust. You might be trying to characterize the plume, or observe, the effect of running the thruster on, materials that are around it, any number of things. There is some definite overlap there.
So Agile's trying to make some waves here. Speaking of the overlap, I believe I read the press release that y'all are aiming for a dual mode propulsion, combining the EP and ChemProp capabilities, and y'all use the word audacious. Tell me about that, JD.
Well, yeah, you'd be kind of combining the technologies and using a decomposed chemical prop, hydrazine, to be able to provide the gases that the EP needs. And so rather than having a system that goes up that has, a hydrazine tank for, delta V maneuvers and then xenon and be able to do something else, you just run on one propellant and then you use something to decompose that. And then you can do a bimode or dual mode. So you can run on a monoprop or even a biprop, which we have an engine that can do both of those, or gasifying your hydrazine to be able to supply an EP thruster. So you kind of have what we're all kind of looking for is a holy grail of like the Prius and the F-150 being able to do both. Well, we might as well probably have that in space before we have that down here with what we're working on. But it's definitely audacious.
Another audacious thing, you're supporting this kind of movement by the U.S. toward these responsive launch missions. How has your testing capability in-house enabled you to be part of the Victus Haze mission, which is the latest in that series of responsive missions?
We've touched a lot of that. Testing has been a big part in that, in being able to develop the thrusters quick, but then also our fueling services. A lot of that is being able to provide fueling services. And now we're doing like mobile clean rooms to be part of that mission to kind of, go wherever they need to. And so our testing services are more in validating that those processes work and then providing people who are experienced in working with hypergulls and helping kind of guide the design process for like the mobile clean room. The thrusters specifically associated with that and like trying to develop them as well. But the call up on that's going to be, pretty wild on how we end up supporting it.
We're coming to the end here. Want to offer both of our guests an opportunity to make a final point, call to action. Amy?
So one key thing to remember with testing is that it only ever gets you so far. It can be a key tool to help you cross the TRL valley of death, but at some point you've got to take the leap. And you've got to just fly the hardware. And it's a matter of risk tolerance for our customers and stakeholders, how far they want to take that testing versus when they're ready to kind of take that leap and pull the hardware into space.
I think it's a great point. That last leap is kind of the most terrifying part, but you got to test. Test is critical to be able to know the next steps. Generally, when we're doing these, design validations or experimenting with stuff, you struggle into something, and when you do it in test, you can figure out what the next step is supposed to be. So I kind of preach to our team here of like, you want to be the best at tests so that design knows the next step they're going to make is the right step.
Excellent. So for propulsion testing, contact Agile, contact Aerospace. There are other test beds and proving grounds that are being collected and are accessible to the commercial enterprise. The Space ISAC is an example of an organization that's consolidating those resources. We'll provide some links in the show notes. Thank you, JD. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, T-. And thank you for listening. And we'll catch you next time in the Nexus.
We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back. Friday, May 16th would have been Dr. Nancy Grace Roman's 100th birthday. Nancy was known as the mother of Hubble. Not the man, but the space telescope that we all love and cherish, which is why she's also the namesake of the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, which is due to launch in 2 years. Nancy was a trailblazer. She earned her bachelor's degree in astronomy from Swarthmore College in 1946 and a PhD in astronomy from the University of Chicago in 1949. At the Naval Research Lab, she made significant contributions to radio astronomy, including mapping the Milky Way and measuring the distance to the Moon using radar. In 1959, Nancy became the first chief of astronomy at NASA and the agency's first female executive. She was instrumental in establishing NASA's space astronomy program. Thanks to Nancy's vision and determination, the Hubble Space Telescope was launched in 1990, revolutionizing our understanding of the universe. After retiring from NASA, Dr. Roman often worked with young students in underserved communities, hoping her story and mentoring could inspire them to join humanity's quest for knowledge in a STEM field. Dr. Nancy Grace Roman passed away in 2018, but her legacy continues to inspire generations of scientists and stargazers. On her 100th birthday, we celebrate a trailblazer whose vision opened our eyes to the wonders of the universe. That's it for T-Minus for May the 19th, 2025, brought to you by N2K Cyberwire. For additional resources from today's report, check out our show notes at space.n2k.com. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing space industry. If you like the show, please share a rating and review in your podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to space@n2k.com. We're privileged that N2K Cyberwire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K makes it easy for companies to optimize your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your teams while making your team smarter. Learn how at n2k.com. N2K's producer is Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester, with original music by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilpie is our producer, and I'm N2K senior producer Alice Carruth. Maria Valmazes will be back on the mic tomorrow. Thanks for listening.
T-Minus.
And now a word from our sponsor, SpyCloud. Identity is the new battleground, and attackers are exploiting stolen identities to infiltrate your organization. Traditional defenses can't keep up. SpyCloud's holistic identity threat protection helps security teams uncover and automatically remediate hidden exposures across your users, from breaches, malware, and phishing to neutralize identity-based threats like account takeover, fraud, and ransomware. Don't let invisible threats compromise your business. Get your free corporate darknet exposure report at spycloud.com/cyberwire and see what attackers already know. That's spycloud.com/cyberwire.